And we are going to invite Ian Rutherford from Manchester, Sheena Tranter from Bristol, Andy Street from Bristol, and Tani from Liverpool. So can you give them a clap as they come up? That'd be great. I'd just love to ask a couple of questions off the back of that brilliant video. Just to ask kind of, what is your response to listening to something like that from Andy? So obviously you've worked really a lot with Andy, with the vision for Manchester. What are some of your thoughts off the back of that video? What is some of the things that you're passionate about and excited about in this next season?
Well, we've really been pushing to get that F in VCFSE. And did you notice the big emphasis that Andy Burnham made in that video when he put the F in VCFSE? But I think the big word for us is connectivity. This is why we're forming GM Networks Connect, because it brings everyone together, facing in the same direction. But it's not enough to just be facing there. You've then got to mobilize everyone to be working in that way. So we know that in those very big issues that we're dealing with here in this summit today, we're actually only going to be able to do that if we're doing this in a cross-sector, whole society way. And that's the way that we're dealing with things in GM. And it's the way that we obviously know that we want to share with everybody in the summit.
Incredible. Over in Bristol then, so we're really inspired by what's happening in Bristol. And I remember I was on a sabbatical last year, and the first place I wanted to go to was Bristol to come and see what you guys are doing. Can you just share a little bit what's been great about working with the civic authority? How has that kind of just really worked and been fruitful for you guys? You can both say
maybe
something.
I'll give a little bit of a foundation, and I think maybe Andy will just add to that. But for me, what was very special was how Andy picked up on what Roger was sharing about Psalm 133. When we work together in oneness there, the Lord commands the blessing. And that's been a real blessing in Bristol, as in many cities, of just how the body of Christ has come together in just the most extraordinary way that has enabled the city to flourish. And I think just so many prototypes that have been born in the church have been kind of executed in the city. So bringing the spheres together, as Roger has been doing with others and myself and Andy, has just been amazing. When the body of Christ comes together across the different disciplines in the city, how that's been kind of then become something that's taken on by the city. And I think Andy will share a bit more about the One City Plan and how that's been going. But the church leaders coming together week by week, Chris bringing many of the church leaders together on a Thursday morning, Fatima now as head of churches together, and also as we've been coming around, Marvin, 12 of us or more every month, just a mayor of our city, has just been amazing as we've just kind of worked together with Marvin, just listening to God for his strategies on various issues, various problems, various crises. It's been incredible how God has led us and has drawn us together even more as a kind of band of brothers in what God's been doing. So it's been the ride of my life, and I've loved it. So Andy, maybe you can...
Actually, I think just reflecting on is that working?
Yeah.
Just reflecting on what we've just heard, Ian, to have one of the leaders of one of the biggest cities in this country make that sort of statement reflects something remarkable. Andy Burnham is no fool. He's a very, very clever politician, and I admire him a lot. I've had several conversations with him and Marvin during COVID, two mayors coming together. But what it reflects is the work that Ian and others in Manchester have done in building relationship and building trust. You don't get the leader of Manchester making that sort of statement unless they trust individuals and they trust the church in a city like Manchester. And I guess that we've had a similar journey in Bristol. We've had, up until early May, we had a Christian mayor, Marvin Rees, for 8 years. And in many ways, Marvin, yes, was a Christian, and obviously he shares our faith, but he took the risk, in a sense, of opening the doors to the city, not just the church. Basically saying to the city, if you've got an offer to make to address some of those challenges that we as a city experience, then come with an offer, but also come with an ask. How are you going to deliver that? What is it about? Is it about food insecurity? Is it about homelessness? Is it about women who are struggling in modern-day slavery? What is it that you can come and offer? And we came together as a church in the city, and there again, there was that sense of unity, and we started to make offers, and we were well received. Of course, when you do that, the risk is you've got to deliver, and you've got to do it well. And I know that that's what Ian has been doing in Manchester. So for me, there's those three things, that sense of coming together in unity, building community, but it comes out of building relationship and building trust. What we've had in Bristol, I'm sure it's same in Manchester too. Very early on, Marvin created this approach in the city of the one city approach. He basically invited leaders and people from all communities, from the business community, from the voluntary sector, from the faith sector, from civic life, to come together and to share that journey, and together to see whether we could build something of some significance. So there was a sense that it wasn't just the church coming together in unity, it was the city coming together in unity. That's where, as Roger reminded us earlier, that's where God commands a blessing. So I think there's an even bigger blessing, not just when church comes together, but when church is a core part of what's happening in the city. Some may say we've come to the end of Marvin as mayor. Oh gosh, should we all pack up and go home? No, because this 8 years has prepared a foundation, a significant foundation on which God's got bigger plans. God's got bigger plans. And I've said a few times recently in Bristol, the best is yet to come. And I'm going to say the best is yet to come for every town and city in this country. I'm sure of it. I'm sure that's true in Manchester. I've said too much.
Absolutely. Tani, over in Liverpool, so what have been maybe some of the challenges of working with civic leaders? Is it all plain sailing, or does it come with its challenges?
Well, it had great times, and also it's had its challenges. I think Liverpool is quite a different city from, for instance, Bristol. For a start, it's very, what should I put it, very strongly left-wing. So that means there are intrinsically anti-Christian tendencies. We had militant tendency for quite a while that controlled the city. So the remnant of it is still very strongly embedded in the way that the city operates. So over the years, we've had tremendous breakthroughs when the churches came together and did an outreach festival where we did incredible works in cleaning up the city and working with the police and looking at safety and so on and really transforming some of the regions. Lots of churches are doing great things right across. Part of the weakness has been no proper coordination, no strategic pulling together, which is what Ian has been talking to me about and pushing me about. And together, we went to, we met with Steve Rutherford, who is our MP, the mayor, the regional mayor. Again, part of the challenge was that we had two mayors. We had one for the city, and then we had one for the region. And whereas Andy could, I know Andy well, Andy could steam ahead with Manchester, but for Liverpool, it was very difficult because you had two real struggle for power going on. So until recently, when the Liverpool mayor then stepped down, she actually, her platform was that she would come in as mayor and then she would step down, which is graciously done, showing integrity. And that comes really very much at the heart of the problem with the city. The city, for years, the churches met and we prayed and we saw major changes in the fabric of the city. I mean, the waterfront was derelict and there was poverty right across major parts of the city, and we would meet and pray. And in the 80s and 90s, we had very large groups, hundreds meeting together to pray and to seek God. And so we had, life came to the city. So where the city is now, even the City of Culture Festival in 2008 was all part of the coming together of the church and just praying for God to change the city. But whereas in 2008, for instance, the churches were invited to be part of the Festival of Culture, and we held a festival that we had 25,000 people come to it. Wow. No problem with that. But at the heart of it has been the challenge with working with the church.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Recently, last year we won the award for the social cohesion charity of the year type thing. And yet, when it came to giving us money for the festival, the city refused to give us money.
Wow.
Because we're a Christian organization. You
Gosh.
see, because it's a gospel music festival we wanted to hold. And so these are part of the challenges. But I'll tell you, at the heart of the city remains a deep problem of injustice.
Right.
And exploitation of people. It's as if there's a power, talking very strongly, of oppressing, keeping people in oppression. And recently I left, I had been part of the leadership of Together for Harvest for years, the unity movement for Liverpool. And then I felt God challenging me to leave that comfort zone and join another group, the Churches Together group, which includes the Catholic Archbishop of Liverpool and the Anglican Bishop and the heads of the Methodist and United Reform and so on. So there's a leadership team for the city, and because I'd been quite vocal for years, so they said, come and join and stop complaining. Anyway, so I'm part of that group now, but it's been, so we met a couple of months ago, we met to eat with the MPs for the city, for the region, and we were saying, how could we work with you better? That was the question we put to them. And the normal things were coming up, which was, yeah, what social actions are you doing and how are you helping and all the stuff that we do so well. And then one of the MPs there, who obviously did not get church in his approach, because I'd spoken to him before we started talking, and he just said, okay, it's great, you people, what you're doing, but you will not achieve anything until you tackle and you're vocal about the very root, the people, that it doesn't matter whether they're Labour, whether they're Tories, there is a systematic exploitation of people. For instance, in Liverpool, properties were sold for £1 each, which ended up in the hands of many that had the money. Wow. You know, and so it was saying that you have to speak up, but to speak up, you have to stand as one. That you people, you have intrinsic, it's part of your values of honesty and integrity and justice and so on. How are you pouring that out into the life of the city? So that's the challenge that I've been. When I met with Steve Rutherford, I went with Ian, and this was the thing that came out of it that we've been thinking about. It's great to do these things, but what of the very root of it?
Yeah.
How are we touching it? And it's fantastic when you've got a Christian guy at the top, because that spreads down, and those values begin to permeate through the region. So that's the challenge of Liverpool. So right now, that's what we're working on.
Wow. It's just reminds me of that scripture of we're not fighting against flesh and blood, are we, but powers and principalities. And I think prayer is, I remember having a Zoom call with Bristol as the team in Lincoln saying, how have you got to where you are? And the first answer was prayer. Like prayer. So important, isn't it? You're battling against these power lines of the enemy, and he's had it for generations in these cities. Is there anything that you could give us some advice on people setting out into that kind of sense of entering into connecting with civic leaders? What have you done wrong in the past? I always learn from people's mistakes as much as the glossy stuff. Is there anything that you think, oh, we wish we hadn't done that? Or you've learned a few lessons along the way? Ian, I'm sure you have.
Well, I've tried not to do those things that are the obvious things wrong. The church often gives the impression that we know the answer and we're going to tell you what that answer is. We don't listen well enough. And so I suppose coming into ministry, having been a lawyer for many years, I decided to do it the other way around. So going into Doncaster, in my first appointment, listening to the elected mayor, listening to the 3 MPs, asking the question, what is it that is really bad and not good in our city? And hearing that it was dementia, it was aspirations of young people, it was homelessness. And that's what we turned our attention to, because we listened. I think the trouble is sometimes we think that we can go and say what is the answer, whereas in fact we have to listen first, and then we go and offer. That's the important thing for me.
Yeah.
And I would say, as well as listening to the city and to the needs of the city, I think also just listening to God, because I just love the life of David. Each time there was a new issue, a new problem, a new crisis, he would inquire of the Lord. And as we've done that together, it's just been amazing that we can't assume or presume, and there's a danger there. If we just repeat what worked before again, then it could have disastrous consequences. But actually, God is just, he loves the city more than we do. And he wants the victory. He wants to be glorified in the city more than we want it. And he'll do everything to do that if we're listening to him.
Incredible.
Ooh. Can you get me in stereo there? How honest can I be? Is it
Be
just in these
brutally
four walls?
honest.
Is
We want
that right?
brutal honesty
Okay.
here.
I'm actually quite an impatient person. Those of you who know me will realise that. And I've had a growing sense, and I think particularly in the last year, and I've heard it said publicly today, but also in chatting with people I know from across the country, that we're on the cusp of something. There's something extraordinary happening. Often we say, oh, God's at work. Well, God's always at work. But there's that sense of alignment. I was speaking to Steve Botham earlier, and he was saying the same, the sense of alignment, and we're there. But I just want it to happen today, or tomorrow will do. Maybe at the end of the week, but no later than that. And I guess the confession, and where I've made a mistake, is just to see it through my eyes and to want that breakthrough that I think we're so close to now. In my day job, I've been one that's been involved in all over the world doing sort of strategy stuff around cities. So I understand how cities work in an environmental sense, not in the context of city transformation in that way. And you always sit down and you talk to people and you draw a strategy up. And you have a plan and a strategy, and that's how you address the issue. And in many ways, I think I've found in recent years, that's how I've sort of looked at the city. You get a map out, and it's great to pray over a map. We've done that a few times, haven't we, Sheena, with real impact, I think. But you can often use your human ability, maybe, to sort of develop a strategy. And I've very much sensed this year that it's God saying, but I've got a plan for Bristol. I've got a plan for Manchester. I've got a plan for Lincoln. I've got a strategy. Just pursue my heart.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a bit of the mistake I've been making, if I'm honest, is thinking that we can come up with a strategy which seems to make logical sense. Goodness, that's exactly how we see a thriving church in every community, not just a small group of bigger churches in a city like we have in Bristol, where we're drawing people in. We're actually seeing a thriving expression of church connected with its community, the church linked with the school, linked with the community centre, at the thriving heart of every community. So we're reaching everybody, and everybody's encountering Jesus. That's what God's heart is. Let's just pursue his heart. So that's the lesson I'm learning. And I'm getting there, but pray for me.
I think we all have that sense, don't we, that we want to rush ahead. And sometimes I think we're running ahead of Jesus. That sense of he's the 3 mile an hour kind of God. And maybe we should keep in step with him. I think that's really, really powerful, isn't it?